Welcome everyone to Classic Harbor Line. Today we're going to take a journey around the New York Harbor on one of these beautiful 1920 style yachts. We'll learn a little bit more about it. I'm Ariel. I run the show called Urbanist where I explore cities all around the world. And today we are on a Classic Harbor Line. They do tours all year round, a very wide variety of tours that you can learn all about the New York Harbor. I'm super excited because today we're going to feature the National Maritime Historical Society and learn all about what they do, all about how New York Harbor is so important to trade, not just in the US, but globally, and also very important to everything else in our society, in essence. I'm Ariel, and this is Classic Harbor Line. Let me know where you're watching from, and let's go on the journey through the New York Harbor. But right now, we are with Karen Helmerson, and Karen, do let us know what is the National Maritime Historical Society?
Hi, Ariel. And again, I am Karen Helmerson. I'm a trustee of the National Maritime Historical Society. And our mission is really basically to support our maritime culture and histories and to tell the stories of those multiple histories, both past, present, and those of tomorrow. We're 60 years old. We're celebrating our 60th anniversary this year, so we're really pretty excited. And our offices are located in Peekskill, New York, along the Hudson River.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, and can you show us where we're going through in the New York Harbor?
Today?
I would love to see the chart.
And should we just walk?
Yeah, let's
walk
go.
along?
Yeah,
okay.
let's go this way.
I'll follow you.
All right. So right now we are in the Kingston, which is a 1920 style yacht, and we're going to check out the chart. We have a huge variety of guests today, which we'll meet one by one. But first, let's learn about where we're going here.
Okay, Ariel, we're basically here at Chelsea Piers, Pier 62, Classic Harbor Line. And we are going to go south along the Hudson River. We're going to come down pretty much the middle of the channel, and we're heading here's Ellis Island, for those of you who may be familiar with Ellis. And we're going to head to the Statue of Liberty. We're going to be roughly in this area right here in the channel, and this is New York Harbor.
And then this is Manhattan, this is Brooklyn, and this is Jersey City.
Yes, thank you. And then we're going to head east again along the north side of Governor's Island, right here, and then continue up the East River to the Brooklyn Bridge, as long as I'm not in the way here, and then back west and south again along to the point of Manhattan, come around the Battery, and head back to Chelsea Piers.
Oh, cool. So we're going to see most of what is old New York as well.
Yes, we're going to actually see the heart of New York, which is New Amsterdam, right at the point of southern point of Manhattan.
All right, cool. So we have someone else to meet.
Yes,
right
I think I think
Let's
we're going to
go towards the front. Yeah.
Okay, I'll follow you again.
So hello everyone. Hello Ron. Hello Kay. Hello Marianne. Hello Betty. Hello everyone. Let us know where you're watching from. So right here we have Rick. Tell us about your background. And what do you do here on Classic Harbor Line? Because you started it all.
Well, we have Scarano boat building, and we have to actually shove off. So what we're gonna do is sound off on the horn right now.
Okay.
We're gonna have some of these boats in the background so that we can see, because the boats themselves are relevant to the history that we've got going here, and they're part of the reason why we're here in New York. So it's we just wanted to get a shot as we head back and get a look at the harbor, the rest of the harbor. So we're going to sound off.
Wonderful.
Which means we may want to move things.
Move things. Okay, so what ship are we on right now?
Right now we're on Kingston.
Yeah.
And we're...
let's move away from the horn.
Yep. We've got Manhattan right over here, which is part of the excitement for us. It's a reminiscent of the commuter yachts that the ultra wealthy had. They use these very long, narrow, beautiful boats to commute back and forth to Long Island, upstate, the Rockefellers, the Roosevelts, and the ultra rich. And so they had a large marina, the New York Yacht Club, over at 26th Street back in the early part of the 19th century, or 20th century, excuse me. And they homed these beautiful boats there. They docked them and they commuted with them. And so the idea... So the black vessel over here is a replica of Schooner America. It's more of a tribute perhaps than a replica, but it was built, the original was built at the foot of 14th Street here in New York. And so part of our attraction and coming here and showcasing what we do is the history. And it's just so relevant to the city.
And the boats are in Albany.
We have a shop in the port of Albany, and it's navigable to shipping up there. So it's good for 132 feet vertical and 32 feet of depth. So we've got quite a lot going on up there with ships and shipping, and it's wonderful to reminisce about it all.
And you're also a trustee of the National Maritime Historical Society.
I am, yes,
Yeah.
yep.
So tell us a little bit about the National Maritime Historical Society.
Well,
The Classic Harbor Line's relationship to it.
It's been an inspiration for us to do what we do, and helped us relevant in terms of just getting information, knowing what's out there. We like to think that it's a mutually beneficial relationship in a way. We support each other, but it's just it's so wonderful that National Maritime does what they do and brings back the history and keeps it in mind for all of us, because it's so relevant, especially today with all that's going on. So we need to keep it on people's minds, I think.
Wonderful. And then where are we leaving from right now?
This is Chelsea Piers.
Yeah.
There's so much going on here these days, and the large the cruise ships that used to come in and out here, but back in the day they were ocean liners, not cruise ships, and they were certainly a lot more beautiful and a lot more elegant than they are today. But it was lined with piers from here down around the Battery and up the east side. It was all shipyards. Just this wonderful history. So it's great to make sure people are aware of it and keep it on people's minds.
Right. It's great that you're showing people, locals and tourists alike, all around New York City, and the history behind it as well, and giving them a very unique experience that they wouldn't get on foot, on ground.
Well, imagine in the old days coming up and down here with a 2-knot current with only the ability to sail.
Right.
And at times they had to kedge their way back and forth, basically throwing an anchor out, pulling themselves. They'd get in a rowboat with the anchor, throw it out, pull themselves up. It was interesting. It's fascinating to me that they were able to navigate back in the day. It's just, the seamanship was phenomenal compared to...
Right. And here we have Captain Shannon right over here. Going to take us safely all around the harbor. Can you give us a tour before we talk to Jim Noon about the National Maritime Historical Society? Can you give us a tour of the Kingston right over here?
Kingston is, once again, it's a period vessel that was, just designed with history in mind, based on what people were doing 50, 100 years ago. This vessel is all wood.
Okay.
The hull is wood. And it's...
let me show the front over here.
It's interesting.
And then you were part of the design process with this as well. Yeah.
Part of the design process, yes.
Wonderful.
Yep.
And we see the name right over here. What is the name inspired by?
Kingston. Well, we were naming vessels up and down the Hudson,
the
towns up and down the Hudson for a while. We have inspiration for names here and there. When we built the original Manhattan, we found that there were no other Manhattans around here. Now there's a half a dozen of them. I think they like to emulate what we do, perhaps. I'm not sure.
And let's go towards the back of the ship and just show us what
so
inspired the design inside.
Yep. Well, I can tell you a little bit more about the construction as well. We find that going back in time, we realized that we utilized, for example, on the sailing vessels, some of the old style rigs, because it wasn't so, aside from the fact that that's aesthetic and it works really well, not just looking good, but functionally, for what we do, it works better than contemporary rigs. So going back in time, utilizing just ideas and the way folks did things many years ago works well today. These wooden boats that we build are the least maintenance boats in terms of the hull construction of any of the boats that we build. We can build in aluminum, steel, but the wooden hulls themselves, with modern materials and technology, have the least maintenance of any of them. So it all works very well. Just utilizing the processes that were developed ages ago still works today.
Oh, fascinating. And lastly, what do you love most about being on the water?
Well, I think you said it, being on the water, but
Right.
yeah, no, it's just, when you come out here, it, and especially one of the things about our boats, there's an intimacy with the water.
Yeah.
They're smaller than most of our competitors doing what we do, so it just relates to a much more, just a better feeling, a more intimate relationship with the environment.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rick Scarano, founder of Classic Harbor Line, also trustee of the NMHS. And then who are we going to meet next?
Yeah, Ariel, we're going to talk with Jim Noon, our chair of the National Maritime Historical Society.
Okay, perfect. Let's go down here. Jim, how's it going?
Hey Ariel, good to meet you.
Good to meet you. You can hold that mic. I'll sit
thank you,
down.
Karen.
You can sit down if you want to.
Okay, good.
So tell us a little bit about the National Maritime Historical Society. How did it start?
The National Maritime Historical Society is celebrating its 60th anniversary this year. And you can see on the wrapper of our most recent magazine, as it says that in the bottom.
Oh, wonderful. And
And-
that is the Sea History magazine.
That's right, Sea History magazine, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that.
Okay.
But back in 1963, a group of seamen and sailors wanted to save a ship called the Kalyani. It's a rare ship built in 1899, square rigger, the last American square rigger. And they wanted to raise money and get public awareness to save that ship. Unfortunately, the ship sank in the Philippines. So this group decided to start this national organization to save ships like the Kalyani, but also to tell the public about the maritime heritage this nation has done and is continuing to do. So those were the founders of the National Maritime Historical Society back in 1963, 60 years ago. And I might just...
And who was the founder?
the founder was Peter Sanford and Carl Khartoum.
Okay.
And their names are well known in the maritime heritage world. But just a footnote, as an emblem of the recommendation and remembrance of the Kalyani, it's on our merchandise, like my hat.
Let me show a close up.
That's right.
That's wonderful. I love it.
And on our logos, like the one down at the bottom there.
And then what ship is on the logo?
The Kalyani.
Kalyani.
The ship I talked about before.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was the ship that was they tried to save.
And what was the ultimate fate of the ship that you said?
The ship sank. But the good result from all this was the start of our organization, which has really become large and much larger probably than they ever thought over the years. Right now we have some 5,000 members nationwide.
Oh, wow.
We're located in Peekskill, New York, on the Hudson River Valley.
And then you're offering seminars as well.
We do that, but it's a membership organization,
Okay.
Non-for-profit organization. So yeah, we have outreach in several ways. One of them is seminars, which we have monthly. It is sometimes mostly online, sometimes in person, of scholars and authors talking about maritime events and maritime events and events. Also, I would say that one of the key ways that we reach out to the maritime heritage History is Sea History magazine, which I just showed you.
Yes.
This organization right here.
And then you also have a kids section on there as well.
Pardon me?
You have a kids
I will.
section
I'll
as
show
well.
that to you in a moment. But this comes out quarterly, this magazine, and is really the preeminent magazine and write-up in the maritime history world.
Right.
It's very well thought of, and it's one of our main assets in reaching out to the nation to do what our founders had asked us to do, that is to tell the story of the maritime heritage. So yeah, we have outreach in several ways other than the magazine. We have the seminars. We have what they call Sea History Today, which is an e-blast to our members twice a month. It talks about interesting and sometimes quirky things about the maritime world. And we also have what we call a weekly e-blast, Tuesday Tidings, which talks about Navy information, naval events coming up, and it's very popular for people with naval background. And we took this from we inherited this, you might say, from the Navy Historical Foundation, which dissolved last December. And so we told them we'd like to take it over, which we did. And as a result, we've got many new members with Navy backgrounds. Getting back to Sea History magazine, it's really popular. And as I said, it comes out 4 times a year. The editor is Deidre O'Regan. Deidre has been doing this for 20 years. And when we had our annual meeting back in April, I joked to her that we'd like to keep her around for another 20 years. She kind of laughed and said 10 would do, and I said, well, we'll try that for starters. But
and what's she mostly writing about?
Well, she writes about events, large and small, people and events, large and small, about ships, historic, and otherwise ships, shipwrecks, book reviews on maritime matters, and maritime museums and other maritime events going on around the country.
And if you could give us a short reason why should people learn about maritime history?
Well, I think because of its importance. And interestingly, I heard the Secretary of the Navy start a speech some time ago, a month or 2 ago, saying this country is a maritime country.
Right.
And I was a lot given the coast on both sides.
And we're going to learn a lot more about that very soon. Stay tuned.
That's right. We're looking at part of it right now.
Oh yeah, we're already seeing the beautiful views of the New York skyline.
So I don't think it takes history and all the things that the maritime community has for us and will continue to have for us. And also we have projects that we do in addition to the magazine. One of those projects is education. We have worked with the National History Day for many years now, and we give prizes to National History Day winners. There's about 500,000 students from middle and high school that compete for this. We give prizes to middle and high school students who win the state projects that have something to do with the maritime world.
Yeah.
And most recently, we've moved into the national competition by giving awards to teachers of students who get awards. We call it Teachers of Distinction. So that's been going very well.
Well, that's good that you're paying tribute to the people who are helping preserve the history.
That's
as
right.
well.
And these teachers, we think that probably will get other students perhaps to consider doing projects about maritime issues.
Exactly, yeah. And then you yourself are a retired Navy captain.
I served in the Navy for some time, that's
Okay.
right. So I have somewhat of a background in maritime issues, you might say.
And then Ida, who's watching across the pond, is asking online seminars. Do you offer them?
What was that again?
Do you offer online seminars?
We do. I have online seminars, both in-person and online seminars, once a month. And another project we do is we have awards. We have 2 awards, one in the fall, one in the spring. We just had one in May at the National Press Club in Washington, and we have one in the spring at the Navy Yacht Club here in New York.
Okay.
And we give them to recipients who have done outstanding performances in maritime issues.
And then the website is seahistory.org, where people could read more articles and learn more about the society as well.
Well, that's right. And if people want to join, they can go online to our website. We have a very outstanding website, by the way. All of our magazines, Sea History magazine, started in 1972. 51 years of those magazines are all online. It can be accessed by our website.
Well, that's great that you've archived.
It really is. And I wanted to mention before,
Yeah.
We have a section in our magazine about maritime history for kids. And they talk about some aspects that students can be aware of, young people can be aware of, a lot of...
careers.
That's right.
Yeah.
They can talk about jobs and careers, and there are a lot of illustrations in there to make it easy for young people to understand.
Oh, that's great.
And
I wish I had this as a kid.
That's right, when we were young children.
Yeah.
And it's also on our website, the Sea History for Kids.
Okay,
So
perfect.
both online and on the magazine. It's a big opportunity, I think, for young people. We certainly hope so.
Wonderful. Jim, thank you so much.
Okay,
I appreciate
Ariel.
it.
Thanks very much. I appreciate
Yeah.
the opportunity.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to say hi to a few people and then we'll continue on to our next guest. Yeah. All right, let me show you a little bit of the harbor right now. Welcome everyone. Nice to see you here. I'm Ariel. Jonathan is asking, do I get seasick? Jonathan, no, me not personally. The ride is fairly steady. Sometimes it can be a bit bumpy. Today is just slightly bumpy, but it's not too bad. And then right now we see the beautiful skyline immersed in fog. I love that. And then let me know where you're watching from. If you're enjoying this broadcast, feel free to slam that like button right now. More likes gets more people watching these live streams. If you want to see and learn more all about the New York Harbor, we'll be seeing places later this month like the Bronx River, further down into Brooklyn. We'll be going through the Hell Gate, which is one of the more infamous waterways. So go to Classic Harbor Line to learn more on the Instagram. I'm so happy to say hi to people as I'm pointing the camera towards the skyline. Hello, Elizabeth. Hello, Mika. Hello, Ida. Hello, Uncle Wilbur. You worked as a booking agent in Key West. Tell Rick that Brad says hello. I will tell Rick that Brad says hello. Thank you so much, Uncle Wilbur. Hello, Jamie, Jonathan, Emily. Nice to see you here. Classic Harbor Line's tuning in, giving us extra information in the comments. Wonderful. Say hello, everyone, to Meg in the comments. And now we're passing the beautiful harbor. Look at that. And Bruno, nice to see you here. And let me know where you're watching from. Slam that like button. Let me know if you're on Team Like. Andrew, welcome. All right. So if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to ask. I'm happy to ask questions to any of the speakers we're speaking with. This is the National Maritime Historical Society today. So if you have questions about New York City history, especially in regards to the harbor, feel free to ask and I'll relay those questions. And who is driving the America 2 today? This is the Kingston. I don't know who's driving the America 2 today. Captain, what? Oh, it's not going out. So this is Captain Shannon right over here. What?
But I drive it sometimes.
Oh, nice. Wonderful. And Rick, Brad says hello. Yeah. So hello, Bill. Nice to meet you.
Hey, Ariel, thank you.
Let's sit on this side so we can see
Whatever
views
you
of the
like.
harbor. Yeah.
That was good for you.
Actually, let's do it outside. Are you comfortable going outside? Let's go this way. And we can sit down after you. It's a bit wet. So give me a second. I'll come back to you in a little bit.
Whenever you're ready.
We have a technical error. right, the waters are choppy. It's getting foggy and a little bit stormy. So let me know if you still see me and hear me. Sometimes service goes in and out when the weather gets rough. And will you point out where the old oyster beds are? We might point that out. I'll let you know. All right. So this is Bill Armstrong. You were a retired U.S. Navy captain.
I am, that's right. Public Affairs Officer.
And then you're also part of Sail 250.
Yes, Sail 250 is actually the successor organization to Operation Sail. Upsail, people called it. It was a tall ship organization, and our mission was to encourage the fellowship of the sea by bringing tall ships from around the world into New York Harbor for major American commemorative milestones. We did this in 1964 at the behest of President Kennedy.
Oh, interesting.
And in 1986 for the bicentennial of the centennial of the Statue of Liberty. In 1992 for the Columbus quincentennial.
Okay.
And in 2000 for the millennium. 2012 to commemorate the bicentennial of the War of 1812 and the writing of the Star-Spangled Banner. And so the next major milestone is America's 250th birthday, taking place on July 4th, 2026.
And just so for people watching overseas, 1776 was America's birthday.
America's birthday is 1776, when the Declaration of Independence was signed and promulgated, and we declared our independence from Great Britain. And so
and what's happening in a few years, 2026?
So what's happening in a few years? We've invited Allied navies to send their sail training ships into those tall ships from around the world into New York Harbor. They're going to come under the Verrazano Bridge on the morning of July 4th, 2026,
which is around that direction. It's very
that
foggy
way.
right now.
We sail past the Statue of Liberty and salute there,
right,
and sail up past the Battery, and all the ships are going to transit up the Hudson
with the antennas over there. But hopefully we'll see a peak of the Verrazano Bridge. And Pete Russell's tuning in. He's a retired Navy captain, enjoying the calm waters. Oh yeah. And there's other sailors aboard with tin cans. Yes, Pete. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so sorry, what were you saying?
Okay, so the ships are gonna transit up the Hudson River, past the skyline of New York and New Jersey, turn around to the George Washington Bridge, and then sail back down to their respective piers along Manhattan and Brooklyn, Staten Island, New Jersey.
And what would be the best viewing spots for people who want to see all these ships?
Well, that's a good question. Best viewing spots for it. If you've got a boat, the best viewing spot is to anchor out here, pick your spot, get an anchorage outside the zone of restriction near the tall ships, and just watch the parade. If you're on land, you've got a lot of choices. You can sit on either side of the Verrazano Bridge and watch the ships come in. You could be in the Battery. You could be in Brooklyn. You could be anywhere along the Manhattan skyline, all the Hudson River parks up that way. You stand on the George Washington Bridge, or anywhere on the Jersey side.
Oh, that's great.
You'll have everybody who sees the tall ships come up the river remembers where they were and who they were with and what they did on that day.
And I'm popping up photos of the tall ships, and some of them are indeed very tall, so you'll see them from
They're
far
beautiful.
away.
They're beautiful.
They're beautiful.
You'll see them from everywhere.
And so what are some of the ships that are passing through?
What are some of the ships?
Yeah.
Well, hay muchos buques altos de Sudamerica. There are many tall ships from South America coming up here. The Guayas of Ecuador, the Cisne Blanco from Brazil, the Cuauhtémoc from Mexico, the Libertad from Argentina. There's many tall ships coming in from South America. And across the Atlantic, we have the Sagres coming in from Portugal. We've got the Juan Sebastian de Elcano, the world's third tallest ship in the world, coming in from Spain.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the Spanish tall ship is supposed to be in New York this week for a port visit, just to say hello and get acquainted here.
Oh, and then, sorry to interrupt, but this is a very big endeavor, so...
It's a massive endeavor.
It takes all hands on deck.
Well, exactly right. It takes a lot of close coordination between, obviously, the governors of New York and New Jersey. The Mayor Adams of the city of New York has been very helpful. His staff is good to us. We've got NYC and Company helping us, and we've got all kinds of sponsors that we are appealing to now. We've got coordination between the Coast Guard, the United States Navy, up and down the New York City Police Department is wonderful to us, and of course they need to provide security for the public as well as for the visiting ships. And it's just a massive undertaking. We've been working at this for about 3 years to get ready now.
Yeah, of course.
So it takes a lot of effort.
And what would be the tallest ship that would come in? What do you anticipate it to be?
Well, it's relative, I guess. I mean,
Or what would be the height?
Well, I think the Spanish ship, the Juan Sebastian de Elcano, is
Yeah.
the tallest ship. The ship that leads the parade every year is the U.S. Coast Guard bark Eagle. It always leads the parade of sail up the Hudson River and as it comes under the bridge, and that always gets a lot of attention.
Right, of course. Yeah, I imagine the views must be spectacular to see all these.
Spectacular, either whether you or from land. I mean, everybody. Remember when the Italian tall ship, the America Vespucci, was in for the 1992, the Voyage of Discovery quincentennial. I took my kids aboard. They played around on deck on the America Vespucci. My girls did, and they always remembered that, and they loved it. They've seen other tall ships and other military ships since then,
Right.
but it's one of those memories that just stays with you. Everybody who sees a tall ship coming in like this thinks about it forever. We are actually creating these memories for the next generation of young sailors.
Oh, that's great.
It's going to be an awful lot of fun for everybody.
It inspires
and
also.
it's a big birthday party in New York Harbor.
Precisely, yeah.
Yes.
And we'll also be around July 4th as well.
In July 4th, for about a week, the ships will be in port.
Right.
It's part of a whole enterprise. They're going to start probably in the.
The harbor. So a lot of these tall ships, do they need really deep waters to pass through?
Well, they're accustomed to going into ports all over the world. We have to do some dredging to get some of them in here. We'll do some dredging to get them in too.
I see. Perfect. Wonderful. And then any last words you want to share about Sail 250?
Just come and watch our website,
Yeah.
sail250ny.org, sail250ny.org,
Sail250
and you'll see our development as we get closer to the events. There's a list of all the tall ships that we've invited on there, and our purpose, our mission. It's an educational program too.
And it maintains the history alive.
It keeps history alive, is what part of our comrades here from the Naval Military Historical Society are showing us. It's just going to be a wonderful enterprise for everybody.
Right, exactly. And it'll inspire also young kids and people from all around the world to know that these ships are very important to America and its history and how it grew. Yeah.
It's a great heritage. The Brotherhood of the Sea is one of those binding things that just, it's wonderful to behold.
Good.
And we want to see Ariel back here too in 2026. We'll get you out on
Yes.
board one of those. And you could do another show from there.
Oh, 100%, especially if
about
I could
that?
go to the very top.
Yeah, we'll get to the you want to climb the rigging? Get up there?
I'll do my best.
Well, you'll have fun doing that.
Wonderful.
Good.
Bill, thank you so much. I appreciate
Ariel,
it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Be well.
Thank you.
Nice to visit.
All right. Who's next?
Hi, Ariel. We have Dennis Micah, who's going to tell us a little bit more about the history of the harbor and as we turn east toward Governor's Island.
Okay, perfect.
Dennis, why don't you come ahead?
Feel free to ask any questions about history, New York, the harbor. I'm so excited to show you all this. Hello, Dennis.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Good to
so
see you.
excited to chat with you. You're the senior historian for New Netherlands.
New Netherlands Institute, right?
New Netherlands Institute, and then you know all about the history of New Amsterdam very well.
Well, I know something about it. Yeah, not everything, but
And then the reason why New York is such a huge city and why America is such a powerful country is partly due to New Netherlands and New Amsterdam.
yeah, I would say that the Dutch influence really kind of unraveled or uncovered the DNA that's in this beautiful geographic space that we're sitting in right here. So that's kind of the thing that I'd like to share with
Feel
you.
free to take a seat
if
because
I
it's
don't,
gonna get
if I don't
bumpy.
fall off the
Yeah.
boat. Okay. I just wanted to direct everybody's attention
do
down
it.
this way. We really can't see the Verrazano Strait, the Verrazano Narrows.
So it's there in the distance. We're seeing a little bit. I'll point the camera towards it. You can see it is very important about this
But
strait.
I think it's important to get maybe an overall view of this incredible bay. So, Ariel, maybe if you can kind of pan this whole area. This is New York Bay. This is what ultimately Henry Hudson, discovered as the first, the second European actually to sail in here. Verrazano was the first one. But it's after Henry Hudson's exploration here that the Dutch began to leave their imprint here. Not that they were alone, but I was wondering if you could direct the audience to that map that I gave you, the Manatus map.
100%.
If you could see that. Whoa.
Now it's getting very bumpy. Let's go inside.
Okay.
So it'll be a little bit easier to pop up different
Okay.
images.
It'll get flatter as soon as we're over by Governor's.
Ah, perfect. Okay. You're already used to this. You got your incredible sea legs.
Keep it black.
Sarah, if you can grab that spot over here. Yeah. Thank you so much. Bill.
Okay.
So what were you referring
So if
to?
you were looking at the Manatus map that you can get up on your screen there,
If you can describe it for me a little bit.
you can see that it's the 17th century looking map that looks kind of like this.
We'll show this
Color one?
specifically. I see. Okay. Yeah, we'll show this
Okay,
specifically.
I can hold on to it. If you look on the inside of this map, this is where Hudson first came in, and this was he first began to explore the Raritan Bay, what is now Gravesend Bay, and he explored along the coast of Staten Island, and he was first impressed by the beautiful land that he saw and the sweet smells that he saw coming from Staten Island. So for all the people that have negative things to say about Staten Island, this was the first thing that impressed, one of the first things that impressed Henry Hudson.
And apparently he called it the Eden of the West. That's according to legend. He said that.
I haven't heard that. I was looking at his Jewett Journal, which was the man who accompanied him.
Okay.
I didn't see it there, but it's very possible. But then he tested the waters coming in through here, and then he came up through what is now Verrazano Narrows, and then began to explore what is now Manhattan Bay, that area that I just had you pan,
So
which
we're
was
passing through it.
which
right?
was a remarkable bay, according to his. That was one of his first comments. But you should know too that he was not alone. What he encountered here, he encountered the native peoples that were already here. And as soon as he pulled into this area that he was exploring, some of the natives that were in the area came to meet him and exchanged tobacco and wanted to trade right away. And as he traveled to different places, he encountered different native groups. So the native groups were generally Munsee speakers. We know that they were Munsee speakers with names that many New Yorkers would be familiar with, like the Hackensacks, like the Raritans, like the Rockaways, like the Massapequas.
For people who are not from New York City, those names still survive to this day.
These names, are towns in both New York and New Jersey.
including the island that is the center of New York right
Well,
now.
what he first really noticed was how many different islands there were. He named Staten Island was named after the Dutch States General. The Dutch were the only republic in Europe at the time, and the States General was their ruling body. Manhattan obviously is an island, but so are the small islands, around in the bay. The islands up the East River that we'll see in a little while. Roosevelt Island was at the time was called Hog Island. Governor's Island was called Noten Island because there were nut trees on it. And then Brooklyn was called Longa Island, which is Long Island. So Brooklyn was really an island, which is right over there.
Right behind Governor's Island,
Right.
which we're seeing first. over
Exactly. So the first
there. And that neighborhood, that name still survives today with Long Island?
Long Island, yeah, that's where it came from. The Dutch were the first to name it that way. But as soon as Hudson returned back to Europe with news of what he had uncovered here, he was immediately followed up by Dutch private traders.
Okay.
These were called particuliere koopluiden in Dutch. They were the ones who saw an opportunity to make some profit, and they were the ones who sent their voyages, individual voyages on their own to try to exploit the area. And there was a first example of competition between traders on Manhattan Island sometime around 1613, 1614. And one of those involved in that discussion was a man named Juan Rodriguez, who we believe is the first person of mixed heritage who actually settled on Long Island. He was probably from Santo Domingo, now Dominican Republic. We don't know much about him, but we do know that he was a real person who actually lived here. So it's that initial contact that follows Hudson that I think is really significant. He understands the lay of the land. He attracts attention in Europe, and it's what follows after that I think is the next phase that I'd like to talk about.
And why Manhattan specifically, not like City Island, which was a contender as well?
Well, I don't
And
think,
why the New York Harbor also?
Well, I mean,
similar in
if you take a look at this map, you can get an idea about how magnificent the harbor was. Initially, when the Dutch West India Company took control of this, which is that next phase I wanted to describe, they were looking for different places to promote settlement. And if you look at that other map that might be included in there, it's a map of. Let's see if I can see it there. But anyway, it's they found 4 different areas of settlement in the area that they claimed to be New Netherlands. So one was going to be in the lower Manhattan Bay. Initially, it was going to be on Governor's Island, Dutton Island. one further north, which was now Albany, one on the Delaware River, and one where it was now Hartford. So that was the whole area of New Netherland, which was a huge area. And that initially was going to be where the settlement was. But by 1624, 1625, 1626, the desire was to move everybody down to lower Manhattan for safety. And that's when the so-called purchase of Manhattan takes place with Peter Minuit, and making an arrangement with the local native tribes that are here.
And then why keep this history alive for Dutch New Amsterdam? Do we still maintain certain aspects of what the Dutch started here?
I think the importance of that particular phase with the West India Company is to realize that the West India Company was founded not to follow up with Henry Hudson, but to promote the interests of the Dutch in fighting against the Spanish and the Portuguese for their independence. So immediately, New Amsterdam and New Netherland, the colony, was embroiled in European conflict. It was a product of it. It was always connected to the Atlantic world. It was actually of secondary importance for the Dutch West India Company. They were mostly concerned with Brazil. So a lot of what happens in early New Amsterdam history, New Netherland history, is seen through the lens of the Dutch West India Company paying attention to Brazil. And it's that constant focus of the people who settle here in this area that arouses their attention. They're all interested in a global perspective. And I think it's that global perspective that's always been part of New York. For example, one of the first things that the Dutch under the West India Company did was create what were called patroonships. And these were basically private investors who were looking for ways to privatize colonization. The West India Company, even though they had a monopoly on the fur trade, knew that their finances were limited. They only had a certain amount of money. So they would ask wealthy people, investors in Amsterdam, to invest in bringing people over and paying for their colony. So the most famous one is the one of Van Rensselaer, Hillian Van Rensselaer. Van Rensselaer's were north, up near Albany. But also there were patroonships right over here in Pavonia, which is now around Hackensack, Jersey City. Actually, the people in, I just noticed that the people in St. Peter's University actually have named their mascot the peacock, which was Michael Paw in Dutch was peacock. Bonnie was peacock. So they were aware of the history, which is, I think, really fascinating. Staten Island was actually a patroonship for a while. They didn't always succeed, but it's this private investment that's looking to create some kind of foundation. But foundation, because they want to grow crops that they're going to send to export. It's not just a small farming community. It's crops that they're going to export. And eventually, changes that is something that happens, about 10 years later, which is the Dutch abandon their monopoly. They open up the trade and the idea of purchasing land to everybody in the Netherlands, and that really begins, a major thrust in the growth of New Amsterdam and New Netherland.
And do we still see any remains of New Amsterdam from the waterfront, or is it no longer really visible?
You really can't see it from the waterfront. What you can see is the street outline when you go deeper into Manhattan.
Yeah.
All of this area here is landfill.
I'm going to show people the Costello plan.
Wait, go to the other one, the Vingbooms map.
The which one?
The color map, the Vingbooms map. Let's see. This one here.
That one, okay. All right.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That's a cleaned up model of what the first drawing looked like. But essentially, what you're looking at there is the view that you're seeing right here.
Oh, interesting.
So we're just below the ferries, I believe. You would see where the fort would be back behind that, and where the was. The windmills would be to the left, right on the river. There was a sawmill and a grist mill. You can see the area where the are a little bit further up would be where the initial port was, where ships would unload and land their cargo. And this is
so
where
they were very entrepreneurial from the very beginning.
Extremely entrepreneurial, very entrepreneurial. And that was the whole point of what happened with the West India Company giving up its monopoly.
And started by one of the most profitable companies in history.
Well, it was profitable, but like any large company, they have their financial difficulties, and they were always in financial trouble.
Okay.
And they always realized that that the best way to really ensure that their experiment was going to work was rely on private investors. And so they came up with different ways of encouraging private investors. And this is one of the reasons why Stuyvesant arrived in 1647. The previous direct horrible Indian conflicts that were actually devastating to the native population, as well as to some of the Europeans, but devastated the native population, created an unsettling, insecure environment for many years. Stuyvesant came after this was going to be settled, and he was the one who helped precipitate this union between private capital and the Dutch West India Company. He's often seen as a dictator, but he really wasn't. He was a real company man who understood that if the company was going to profit, they had to have a good relationship with the people in Manhattan.
And so, sorry to interrupt, Elizabeth says, my town, Lewes, Delaware, is also part of New Netherland.
Right, exactly.
Founded by the Dutch.
She's right. She's right.
Sorry, what were you saying?
How much time do we have? Where do we want to go?
Let's do one more minute of what we're seeing right now. And
well, what you're seeing right now would be, if you look directly this way, you would see the area that was the most important port facility of what becomes the city of New Amsterdam.
And they extended up to Wall Street?
Yeah,
modern day Wall Street?
Up to Wall Street. The wall was
we're
built.
about to pass
The
through
wall was
soon.
built in 1653, primarily to protect against the English, not against the natives, against the English, because the Dutch were involved in a war with England, and they were afraid of invasion coming from New England.
Right.
But the area, if you want to go to the Costello plan now,
Yeah, let's show that Costello plan.
that area of the Costello plan, that shows the remarkable growth that took place in the city from the 1650s until the time of the English invasion. And that is a well-ordered city. You see how the streets are lined. The streets are very carefully marked. If you've got a close-up view of that, you can actually see gardens. You can see...
Oh, wow. And even canal.
You can see canals.
Yeah.
You can see where the fort is on that. And you can see right down where, at the lower portion, you can see where the wharf was. And that's where the city hall was, right overlooking the wharf. Ships would land there. Cargo would be weighed. And people very often miss the fact that the city was what allowed the colony as well as New Amsterdam to prosper, because the city was the staple port for the entire colony. It was the capital for the colony. And the capital was actually run by these private merchants who ran the city of New Amsterdam, which was the first city government in the European model. And the people that were in control were the merchant entrepreneurs that made sure that the things that they needed to conduct their business, like protecting contracts, like making sure that their credit arrangements were honored, like protecting private property, all these things were guaranteed by the municipal government. So by the time of the English invasion, New Amsterdam was a prosperous city.
Right.
The English just wanted to take it, and that's what they did. The invasion of New Amsterdam took place before there was any real war. It was a pure invasion. They knew it was coming. And when they negotiated the settlement for the treaty, what we call the Articles of Transfer, sometimes called the Articles of Capitulation, but they basically preserved all of the things that the Dutch had brought in and had created and served as the foundation for what becomes New York City. Manitus map, you see some of the Indian settlements,
Okay.
And you can see further up the river.
Okay.
But what I was trying to say is that one of the things that was preserved here is that the Articles of Transfer keeps the existing structure in place. And when the English take it over, the man that they appoint is a man named, as the first mayor, is a man named Thomas Willett, who had been involved in the growth of New Amsterdam from the 1640s.
Right.
He was a pilgrim who came here, became a close friend and associate of Stuyvesant. He spoke Dutch, so to claim that the first English mayor was Thomas Willett is he was an old-timer who had been around forever, and he was perfectly acceptable to everybody that was here.
And then the last question a few people are asking is, those Dutch names and those families survived for quite a while.
Yes, they do. And the reason is because the Dutch were the ones that were bringing prosperity to this area. There was no mass migration of immigrants after the English conquest.
Right.
Can you just take a quick look? Because we're right at the
Yes.
Brooklyn Bridge right now. If you look at that one the picture by Lynn Tantillo.
Okay. Oh, if you could point out which one.
Let's see. I'll see it.
No, probably don't have it. Okay.
It would be looking south.
If you have
It's a whole lot easier to not rock back and forth.
if you have a paper version, that'll be great.
I don't,
Okay.
sorry.
No worries. Watch out, you're covering the camera. No, I don't think I have.
No, I sent it. Anyway, one of the pictures that I wanted to show you was by the artist Len Tantillo. I recommend that you look at his website and take a look. And he actually shows what this view would be looking south. He has imagined it. If you ever want to imagine what it might have looked like from the views of contemporary historical artists, I recommend Len Tantillo's work. But he looked at it looking south, and you would see that what the Castello plan idea looked like, but from a different perspective. And this one would be Len's work.
Beautiful. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Dennis. Where can people learn more about the New Netherlands Institute?
Well, they can go to our website, the netherlandinstitute.org. We have a lot of things that are going on there. We have a lot of different programs that are underway, so keep track of that, and we'd love to have you join us.
Thank you so much for keeping history alive.
Pleasure.
Yeah. All right. So who do we have up next?
So we have with us Susannah Drake.
Okay. Perfect.
Pardon me.
Thank you.
Susannah, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on board.
Well. Thanks.
And you're involved.
I'm very excited.
You're involved in changing the New York City waterfront for good.
Yes,
For the better.
Yeah, well, I hope so. So I'm a landscape architect and an architect, and I founded a firm called D-Land Studio back in 2005. And we were involved with and now I'm a principal at Sasaki. And I've become, I guess, in 20 years of practice, an expert on climate resilience, or the adaptation of cities to prepare for major climate impacts.
Right.
And so I've been working in New York, and I've been working all over the country on sort of helping cities figure out how to adapt. And back in, I think it was 2009, I was commissioned in partnership with Architecture Research Office, so it was D-Land and Architecture Research Office, to do a museum exhibition for the Museum of Modern Art.
Oh, wonderful.
So, and the premise of the exhibition was to bring in designers to.
I'm showing people right now the exhibition that's set over here.
Yeah, it was great. There were I think 5 design teams looking at different parts of the harbor, and my team looked at Lower Manhattan. And so our focus was on really the area below Canal Street. And one of the early things that we do in a lot of our practices is to do a lot of historical research, to look at old maps. And what we discovered was this really interesting expansion of the waterfront from the 1625 water line, which was kind of at a rocky edge, to into the 1800s, where you had a hardened edge, a hardened bulkhead to facilitate shipping. And then, as the ships got bigger, you ended up with these finger piers sticking out into the water so that the larger ships could come in and offload their goods. But in the post-war period, when the highways were built, the shipping industry was in decline, and so a lot of those piers basically started to degrade. And a lot of that landscape ended up getting transformed for other uses. So
let me pause
go
you here.
ahead.
One of the such highway we're seeing right now, the Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Right.
Yeah.
The FDR Highway is really a piece of 20th century architecture that I'm kind of shocked we're still trying to preserve, frankly. Especially since our research showed that this section of FDR Drive is not used very much compared to the northern ones. So this is an area it seems it's being saved because it's easier to save it than tear it down. So when we were looking at these historic maps and the expansion of the city outward, one of the things that we noticed was that there was if we looked at that fill, and then we looked at the areas that would potentially flood with a Category 2 or Category 4 storm.
Like Hurricane Sandy?
Like Hurricane Sandy, exactly, the Superstorm Sandy. We noticed that the areas from 1625 remained dry in those periods.
Well, that's interesting.
Right? But all the area that was filled would get flooded. Oh. And I've seen this in Washington, D.C., I've seen this in New Orleans, I've seen this in Miami. If you look back to the historic high ground, it usually stays high and dry, right?
Gonna show that image again of the natural waterfronts.
So
Yeah.
if you could show that the image of the Egbert Ville map, that's a really interesting map because it's a hydrologic map of New York City.
Yeah.
And one of the things that shows is where all the historic swamps and streams were as well, because those areas become conduits for the water to come back.
That was my question. So what natural features are the main ones that prevent the water from overflowing?
Well, it's basically topography.
Topography. Okay.
It's as simple as that.
Okay.
But then if you have soils that were historically swampy, then there's also groundwater. And so one of the other important parts of the research had to do with allowing fresh water to get out. So allowing heavy rains to be managed by our design as well. So we transformed all of Lower Manhattan and made the streets permeable. So we made it so that if we had that extreme rain like we had with Hugo, remember?
Yes.
If we had that kind of a rain, all of that water would get absorbed in the streets.
Oh, interesting. I'm gonna pop up the image that you
So-
show of how you would make the streets permeable.
Right, and I think one of the things, we had this
Wow.
image of Lower Manhattan,
And-
this beautiful barrier islands, and everybody focused on the edge,
Yeah.
but they weren't focusing on the upland areas. And the important I think one of the most critical, important parts of this project was that we were working with the upland water and the sea level rise and the storm surge. So it was all of that. It was a holistic system.
And how feasible is all of this to implement?
Well, it's expensive, but it's not as expensive as Sandy.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well,
So
right.
the damages outweigh the cost to prevent
That
anything happening.
That was our speculation,
Okay.
that the damage would outweigh the cost, right? So that we need to actually be acting and doing something proactive.
Right.
So there's one other piece
Okay,
that while
yes.
we're here, you see these green zones?
Yeah, let me see.
That's where the historic slips. And
that deep inside.
yeah, they're right there, and there are a bunch of these slips. So the boats used to be able to pull up into those areas before the FDR and before we filled. And so those were places that we wanted to transform into what we called these sponge slips. So if you had a lot of excess water, it could go into those slips. So some of that excess water might be from a big storm surge, and some of it might be from excess rain from like a Hugo-like storm. But they would become the places of ecological exchange. They used to be the places of economic exchange, and so there'd be this kind of evolution of that idea. And the funny thing is, one of them ends at Exchange Place. So we thought that was kind of a fun little, little fact.
It's also
So-
poetic how Mother Nature reclaims its territory.
Exactly.
So Elizabeth says, I believe you must periodically vacuum permeable streets to retain its permeability.
Well, it's true.
Okay.
They have to be maintained. I mean, just like a garden or just like a storm sewer. I don't know if you've ever noticed those little dots next to storm sewers all around the city.
Yeah.
That's where the DEP comes in and they basically vacuum out the storm sewers. So they're already doing maintenance of storm sewers. And so it's just a different kind of maintenance. It's different machines.
And tell us just briefly, Hurricane Sandy, what was the impact on New York City?
What was the impact on?
Yeah, for people who
Oh gosh.
haven't been kept
Wasn't
up
it,
with New York City.
$50
the past few
million
years. Yeah.
I can't remember the
was
figures right now, but it
Very
was
big about
tremendous.
flooding
I mean,
in the subways. And,
Oh yes,
yeah.
all the subways were flooded, the tunnels were flooded.
Power loss
We
in
had
the
power
Lower East
loss
Side.
for 3 weeks.
Right.
I mean, the city was dark. It was terrifying.
And now we have the New York waterway passing through. So what are your proposed changes for the New York waterfront right over here where we're passing through?
Well, the proposal that we had for the end of the battery, we called the battery breakwater, and we proposed a series of living islands that would the storm surge. What you want to do is break the waves so that you can keep that water from going into the city with as much force. So we planned this kind of geometric array of islands that we imagined we speculated would transform over time as the currents shifted. Fish started to use it as oysters and mussels, and crustaceans started to live in the area. So it would transform into this kind of living area that was underwater, that would be this protective ecological zone.
And also be very scenic as well.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Well, it would also potentially be a recreation area because you could kayak through it, and there'd be lots of birds. It'd be this healthy habitat that would really transform your experience of Lower Manhattan. And we were kind of thinking of that around the East River as well. We had this concept of an elevated landscape back where I showed you the clips that we called the East River esker. And so that was a really important reference point for us, because an esker is a geologic formation that occurs naturally in this area. It's a glacial formation, and we're in a glacial landscape. And so we use that term to refer to this elevated edge that was going to protect the city.
Oh, I see.
So
fascinating. Wow.
So-
I hope New York City moves forward with plans like these.
Well, I think the EDC currently has a proposal out for doing some work near the seaport. I think some work is certainly happening further north. They're also, I think one of the important components of the project was to keep the Staten Island ferry, which is why driving by us at the moment, like keeping the open for important maritime use. So, and I think, we don't want to live in a shoreline that is just sterile. It's the waterfront on the water like we are right now. So
Yeah, definitely, and keep New York City safe.
yeah.
Elizabeth says, where can we find her engineering team's concepts and illustrations online?
Oh, well, if you go to my new firm's website, Sasaki.com, you'll find it under Rising Currents. So it was, our proposal was Rising Currents New Urban Ground.
I'm popping up the title right over here so people can see it.
So-
Wonderful. That's wonderful, and people can find more about your work there as well.
Yes, and there's a lot of detail. I'm sort of glossing over things because I don't have slides in front of me. I'm not used to talking without slides, but it's there's a lot of detail, and I'm also happy to talk to anybody about this work further. So you can reach me at sdrake@sasaki.com.
That's great. Yeah, if you have any questions for Susannah, feel free to ask. I'll try to get to her a little bit later. But thank you so much for telling us all about your project.
Well, thank you. Thank
so
you for
excited
having
for
me.
this.
This is
Yeah.
really fun. So, and it's going to be exciting to see how the waterfront evolves in the next decades.
Right. New York is always changing. That's the beauty of this city. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Susannah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everyone, let us know where you're watching from. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll show you a little bit more of the views. And we have one more speaker, right? We'll talk in about like 5 minutes. Okay, perfect.
This is actually a current resilience project.
Oh, and what is it?
They're elevating the shoreline. This is being done by ACOM, and you may have seen pictures of it recently in the news. But they're elevating the shoreline to protect the Jewish History Museum and basically to protect the city. So they're implementing some of the things that were in our plan, because we called for elevating the shoreline by about 6 feet, and so that's now happening.
That's great that they're doing that, and that's also happening in the East River Park, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they had to cut down all the trees in the middle of the night
Oh, no.
to make that happen, which is really sad. But hopefully they won't do that here.
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
See. We'll see.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. All right, so let me show you a little bit more of the views right over here. Susie says, what was their experience with 9/11? Ooh, I will ask. Rick, I think, might be the best person to speak about that. Stay tuned in a little bit. If you're tuning in right now, feel free to go to Classic Harbor Line. Meg will put in the link in the comments that you can book your own tour. Go to the National Maritime Historical Society website, which is chistory.org. That's chistory.org. You can find out more about the history of the New York Harbor, up the Hudson, all the way to Peekskill and beyond. Now let me show you from the front of the ship. Ellen says, glad you did not do this last Wednesday. Yeah, I'm glad as well. Is there smoke in that distance? No, Barbara. I'm not 100% sure, but this seems more like it's a foggy day and not necessarily smoke. I think the air quality is about moderate today. That's one I checked early in the morning, which is about normal for New York City. So no, we have pretty good air quality today. And Ellen, nice to see you here. Jonathan, thank you so much for asking so many cool questions about the depth. Hopefully Meg answered a few of them in the comments. Right now, slam that like button so we can get more people to watch these broadcasts so they can explore all of the New York Harbor. Not everyone's able to come on these boats and enjoy these beautiful views, which I think are just spectacular. So if you want to share these views with more people around the world, people who can't come for various reasons, they might be halfway across the world or might have mobility issues or might just not be able to come to New York at the very moment. It's awesome that we could share these videos with them. And also for the people who see these videos and are inspired to come on a cruise like this themselves and see the New York Harbor with their very own eyes. Feel free to slam that like button at this very moment. It has gone through many iterations, expanding over swaths of the New York waterfront across Manhattan, Brooklyn, and the other boroughs. How is this boat named? Ida, this is the Kingston right over here, the Kingston. Right over here. All right, we have one more guest speaker today. Say hello to Captain Shannon, who's at the head. Questions for the captain, feel free to ask. I will relay them as well. I'll ask a question. Captain Shannon, if you could quickly answer one question. How deep are these waters and are they tough to sail through?
It is 55 feet right now. Got my depth sounder right there. Generally, this whole river and bay is around 50 feet. That's very standard.
Yeah.
If you get over to the Jersey side, it shoals up. So you kind of gotta watch out on the Jersey side, but the New York side is plenty deep. That's why I can go super close like this.
Always New Jersey, always. Making it tough.
Yeah. And conditions totally depend on the day. This is kind of a tricky day. There's a decent amount of wind, and so it was stirring up the water in the lower harbor a decent amount. And then you always just have so much traffic that the wakes from other boats make it interesting.
Wonderful. And what's your favorite part of going across the harbor?
It's always beautiful.
It's always beautiful.
People ask a lot, does it get old? And I'm like, not really.
It doesn't. It doesn't get old.
It's pretty stunning all the time.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right, Karen, so who do we have up next?
Yeah, we have Nick Raposo with us, and he's the Director of Special Projects for the National Maritime Historical Society. So here you go.
Hey, Ariel.
Nick,
How are you? Nice to meet you.
I'm
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Hey, I'm so excited too. So I want to come over here because I want to talk about some history that's coming up.
Okay, perfect.
Now, National Maritime Historical Society, we love all history, not
Yeah.
just our own, not just ships. Do you see this ventilation tunnel here? Ventilation tunnel number 2 for the Holland Tunnel. It's a national landmark, and it is an important part of maritime heritage because when they put in the Holland Tunnel, suddenly you could drive to New York City for the first time. So instead of taking a ferry boat.
That must have been a game changer
It
for
was
New
a
York.
massive game changer for the city, and it changed shipping. It changed the ferry lines. And in fact, many of the ferry lines lost a lot of passengers because suddenly you could drive from New Jersey right to Manhattan. So interesting part of maritime
So there
heritage.
used to be a lot more ferry lines in New York City.
Oh, there were tons of ferry lines.
Because right now we only have like 3 companies or so.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And I'm sure you know Cornelius Vanderbilt. You know
Yes.
that name, right? Do you know how he got his start and made his millions?
Staten Island, was it?
Staten Island, but how?
Ooh, the ferry system.
He ran a water taxi.
Interesting.
That was his primary gig. So that's
Okay.
how he made all of his money. New York City is an island first and foremost. And this is something that I think a lot of New Yorkers and a lot of people around the world don't really think of it as. Now we're seeing it here. A lot of famous cities are built on the water, but this is an island. So if you came here any time in the past, before the Holland Tunnel, before the bridges, before planes, you came by boat. So that's what I'd like to help everybody see. And when we talk about the National
sometimes
Maritime...
hard to envision as an island.
It is, right? It's amazing to think that this is an island. I'm an islander. I was actually born here. So, you know, it's like I do think of myself as an islander. So anyway, it's a really exciting thing.
And then why is there a vent?
Oh, well, because of the exhaust fumes from cars, they had to change the air in the tunnel. They calculated it to be every 90 seconds, or everybody would die of carbon monoxide poisoning.
In a few seconds, or in a few minutes.
In the few minutes
Yeah.
that they were in the tunnel. So this tower and the other 2 on the New Jersey side changed all of the air in the tunnel in 90 seconds.
Wow.
And it was a massive, massive innovation, and one that was, national landmark status.
So it connected New York City with the mainland.
With the mainland. But understanding water and understanding our relationship to the water historically is something that National Maritime Historical Society is really invested in. It's not just what we talk about in Sea History magazine. It's not just what our historians talk about. It's about our identity as everybody in this country who came here as an immigrant came by water, and this is our heritage. So anyway,
And then to a greater extent, people mostly end up talking about New York City, but also encompasses the entire state of New York.
the entire state of New York.
All the way up the Hudson.
All the way up the Hudson. And I'm sure Dennis covered the fact that, this was Henry Hudson's River, named after him.
Right.
Dutch sailor came up the river. So one of the people who I most admire is a painter who paints New York history. His name is Len Tantillo. And he always said, when he was growing up, he always thought of history as something that happened somewhere else. And he grew up the river here. And he then discovered that history is right here underfoot, and it belongs to all of us. So it's an exciting time to be thinking about, who we are and where we came from, especially as we look at climate change and, the change of the waterfront and confronting our history that sometimes isn't as, pristine as we might want it to be. So.
And now you're getting a lot of people curious also about the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel as well.
So the Battery Tunnel too, and the Lincoln Tunnel. So all of these tunnels, if people are interested in the tunnels, I recommend, I'm just going to say, there are some wonderful books written about the tunnels and the bridges. But if you want some quick information, go to Wikipedia. You can find out a lot of information, and there's a great bibliography at the bottom for you to look for.
And Sea History is also involved with books? as well?
Sea History is also a publishing entity, so we have a number of books. We have books on, we published the Peking Battles Cape Horn, which is, if we saw the waiver tree at South Street Seaport, did you see that big tall ship with the masts?
I was unable to point it out, but yeah, search Waiver Tree Urbanist and you'll see a video about it.
Yeah, so the waiver tree went around Cape Horn, and Irving Johnson wrote a book about it called the Peking. It was called the Peking at the time, Battles Cape Horn. And that's one of the books we published. We also have a great book on, it's called Harbor Voices, and it's New York Harbor.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so there's lots of history.
It goes through all the different types of boats as well.
It does. It goes through all
Vessels.
the different boats that are here and are still moving on. It's a really exciting waterfront here. I know that
We're passing close. Sorry to interrupt, but we're passing close to a very famous part of the waterfront, which is associated with the Titanic.
Pier 54.
Yeah.
So right up here, Little Island Park.
Peek through the window over here.
Sure. If you can look up there, you see those weird little pods sticking up out of the water.
Yes.
Where that was the Cunard White Star Line dock at Pier 54.
We're gonna see it soon.
And very famously, the Carpathia, which was the ship that picked up the Titanic passengers who survived the sinking of the Titanic, brought them here to this pier and disgorged them into Manhattan. Also from here in 1950, in the Lusitania left from that dock and later being sunk by German U-boats. So
Two tragedies. In
two
a row.
massive tragedies, famous associated with that pier. But thousands of ocean liners came and went from that pier for over the decades. I mean, it was an amazing pier.
But now it's a place of happiness with a lot of people
Oh, it's
enjoying
fantastic!
the park
It's a
and
great
running.
place. It's a great place to experience New York, and especially experience New York as part of an island. You know.
And we still see a part of the original pier still to this
Yeah,
day.
the gate is still there. I don't know if you can see it just to the right of the island structure. You can see a metal arch. It's a rusted metal arch to the right. Do you see it? To the right of the gray building. Keep going to the right.
Oh,
And
there it is.
There it is. That is the canard.
Perfect.
That's the White Star Line pier entrance. Just a piece of history right there that you can come down and look at. There's no tickets or bar to entry. And one of the things that I really hope everybody gets from this whole day, this wonderful excursion, is to go to seahistory.org, learn more about the organization, learn more about Sea History Magazine, learn more about what we do. Hopefully they'll join because, this is, it's a wonderful opportunity for people to learn not only about maritime heritage, but if people join at the friend level, this is going to be a little bit of a spiel.
Yes, of course.
If you join at the friend level,
I think
for
people really
$100.
want to support the history staying alive. So
Okay, that's
I would
great.
love to know, yeah.
So one of the greatest things about joining as a friend is that at $100 a year, you also get the CAM card. Now, the Council of American Maritime Museums is an organization that supports all maritime museums around the country. It was started by the National Maritime Historical Society. If you join as a friend, you get the CAM card, which gets you into almost every American maritime museum in the country for free.
Wow.
So that is a huge bargain. If you've been to any maritime museums, even here in New York City, up in Massachusetts and Connecticut.
I've been to ones in Maine as well.
Okay, yes.
Wonderful
So
to see.
that's
Yeah.
right. So which one? Booth Bay Harbor?
Yes, Booth Bay Harbor.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
So-
further up in,
Penobscot Bay?
I forgot the name of the beautiful village that was very picturesque and had brick buildings. It was
Okay.
very merchant
I
heavy.
can't
I
remember
forgot
which
the name
one.
right
I'm
now,
sorry.
But yeah, there's a lot of maritime
but
museums all along the eastern seaboard.
That's right. So
Yeah.
if you come to the Eastern Seaboard and you have this CAM card, you can get into all of those museums for free. It's a great opportunity. So I really recommend joining. Getting Sea History Magazine is a great way to access our history, our shared history on the
And the
water.
magazine's both online and also a print version, right?
And the magazine's online and a print version, so you can get it here.
It's
National
great that
Mari-
you're keeping print still alive.
We are keeping print alive. We're also doing a lot of outreach online. So we're doing. Sorry.
Let me pause you right there.
Yeah, please.
Print also very deeply associated with the New York Harbor.
Yes, it is. Yes, absolutely. So.
And the founder of the museum was associated with
South Street Seaport. That's
the
right. So
museum
Peter
down there.
Stanford was
Okay.
one of our founders, and he really worked to develop the organization. He was really behind the Kaiulani, which you heard Jim talk about
Yes.
earlier. He was a visionary. Carl Cordum, our other founder, a massive visionary. And when we give our awards, one of our major awards is the Historic Ship Trust Award, which is given in Carl Cordum's name. The award that's called the Albion Monroe Award was created by Peter Stanford, who worked at South Street Seaport.
And is that one of the museums included?
That is one of the museums completely included. So
And you can see old printing presses there.
you can see
Yeah,
old
as
printing
well.
presses there. It is an amazing museum. You've got to get down to New York City to see it. But you can also visit all of the other maritime museums up and down the East Coast and the West Coast.
Great.
And the Midwest. I don't want to leave anybody out. The Great Lakes have a great number of museums. And
Probably
the-
not in Nevada, though.
Yeah, no, probably not Nevada.
But yeah,
But-
many parts of the U.S. have a lot of maritime history.
The South Coast, Galveston,
Yeah.
Florida, of course. You have, even as recent developments as like container shipping, and we had a great article on the origins of containerization in Sea History just a few issues ago, which is something, it was one of the most fascinating articles I've ever read, and it was written by a professor from Rutgers who is an expert on containerization. But, we've been doing a vast amount of outreach online. We've been doing YouTube videos. We've been doing, we have a Facebook site. If you go to our Facebook page, you can find connections to all of our articles online that we have up, all of our seminars. So I don't know if Jim mentioned that we do monthly seminars. And our seminar series, we have best-selling authors come in, talk
And
about their
online
books.
as well.
Online as well. You can come, you can attend them for free, although we do recommend a $10 donation. But those are a great way for the public to find us and reach out. So Facebook. And if you go to our website and sign up for our emails, you'll also receive many of our emails that contain links to our events and lectures and dinners as well. So.
And then what's your most fascinating part to you of New York maritime history?
Gosh, the most fascinating part of maritime, for me, it's the Dutch period.
Okay.
So it was. If you've read Russell Shorto's book, or if any of you have read The City at the Center of the World, that period when New York became the economic powerhouse of the East Coast, built by the Dutch, then acquired by the English, that was an astonishing period of time. And so, in terms of interest, that's it. I mean, I was born here. My favorite thing was going to South Street Seaport when I was a kid. So, that was a great event. But being here and seeing what the city has become, even in the last 25 years, I used to live down here in the Village, and I would run along the West Side Highway, and it was a wasteland, and now it's this incredibly revitalized, exciting area.
It's one of the most popular places for running now.
It is one of the most popular. Back in the day, it was not. It was running over a lot of garbage, but now it's fabulous.
And Susie asked, what was your experience during 9/11? Because I know it was a tough time for maritime history and maritime.
It was a
just
very
on the harbor in general.
It was a very difficult time. I was living on Bank Street, and I couldn't get back to my apartment. They had blocked off the whole area, and then ultimately, because of some of that fallout, my wife and I left the city. We moved up to upstate New York, but it was an amazing time. Having the Army on your block is an interesting moment.
Right, New York really came together. At
New York,
that moment.
I mean, the city banded together. There was no difference. I mean, and I have to say, you talk about factionalization today. There was nothing then. We were all just New Yorkers.
And some historic ships helped join
Historic
the effort.
ships, and we had fireboats who were helping people.
Right, like
and
the
ferry
John J.
boats.
Harvey.
The John J. Harvey, and by the way, the Harvey is one of the boats that the National Maritime Historical Society helped raise money to restore. So part of the
we will be visiting soon next week. Stay
yeah,
tuned.
the Harvey is an NMHS project. So, I mean, it is its own project, but it was one of our projects to help it get along. So we support all of these groups. It's so exciting. So.
And one more time, what is the website?
Okay, seahistory.org. So if you go to seahistory.org, you can click join, and you'll get a form where you can just join that. It's $45 for full membership, which means you get 4 issues of the magazine a year. That's almost 300 pages of history a year for $45. I'm sorry, it's a bargain.
It is a bargain.
And if you join as a friend, you also get the CAM card, which
Right.
is this incredible bargain too. So, we just want everybody to share history, and we've got a lot of groups working with us and supporting us. So, anyway, thank you all for being here. I'm so excited to.
Thank you so much
had the
for
conversation.
keeping history alive. That's amazing. History needs to stay alive. It's very important to learn about all of its different aspects, not just the highlights that people mostly know with the Empire State Building, maybe the Statue of Liberty, but also all these boats and vessels in New York City, the harbor, Dutch New Amsterdam. It's wonderful. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to show you a little bit more of us landing back. And thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you, Ariel.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Ariel.
Thank you.
Good.
Ooh, sorry. All right, so we are getting back. Ooh, are we gonna have the horn? The horn is gonna come soon? No horn. Okay, good. I like my hearing. All right, good. So no horn is ringing. We are coming back to Pier 62. This is where you can get cruises all around the New York Harbor on Cruise Harbor Line. I'm Ariel. I run a show called Urbanist Exploring Cities on YouTube. And you can see places all around the world, especially New York. And I do also cruises all around the world too. And then you can also find me on Instagram, Urbanist Live, and on TikTok is my name, Ariel Vieira. And for Cruise Harbor Line, I'll show you the link right now, so you know where to go. At Classic Harbor Line on Instagram. Susie says, thank you for all the incredible information. Wendy, I appreciate you tuning in, Wendy. DS, thank you so much for tuning in. We have a lot of people tuning in, a lot of urbanists tuning in as well. Fans of Classic Harbor Line and NMHS National Maritime Historical Society. Right there is Hudson Yards with the Edge, another place that has changed New York City's landscape. And we are back. Oh, this was an amazing ride. Oh, I love it. Everyone, give a round of hearts to Captain Shannon and the crew of Classic Harbor Line and everyone at the National Maritime Historical Society. Slam that like button. Share this video if you have anyone who's a fan of New York City, the harbor, boats, and vessels. I'm Ariel. This is Classic Harbor Line. Keep being awesome and always keep on exploring and stay curious, my friends. Have a great day. Bye-bye.